Hello again and welcome. Today we're going to do another installation video. This time we're going to do the latest 12.5. Now, as of this month, March 2021, the Call Manager 14 is going to be coming out at the end of this month. Will be released around the 25th, I believe, but I think this is still a very timely install uh, to do, and so I think this is a very good uh, video to do for the installation of 12.5. Now, a couple of the differences in 12.5, which really started in 12.0, is that we have a new operating system. So previous to this one, Cisco used Red Hat Linux for their operating system for Call Manager, Unity, UCCX, etc. And now they're using CentOS uh, for the operating system. It makes the operating system quite a lot faster, more responsive, in my opinion, and it makes some really good advantages, gives some very good advantages to Call Manager, the whole Call Manager system. All right, so the first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need the OVA template to be able to deploy that in the ESXi. So to be able to find that, if you're in the downloads home, you can just type in Call Manager, which it still comes up. Click on the 12.5. We go to first the virtual machine templates, and that's where you're going to find your OVA. So you go ahead and download that. I already have it downloaded. Next, you want to go look at the actual ISO image. Now, again, the ISO images that are on Cisco.com are not bootable, okay? And so you will need to make them bootable, as it says right there. It is non-bootable. So again, I do have a video showing how to make the an ISO image bootable. So I'll link that here, and I'll also so that will show you how to make this image bootable so that you can use it to install version 12.5 of Call Manager. So the one you want is going to be the export restricted. That's going to have the full encryption capabilities for Call Manager. The export unrestricted is for areas of the world that are not going to need or cannot do the full encryption capabilities. All right, so that's one you want to download, make it bootable, upload it to your ESXi, and then you'll be able to get that installed. So let's go ahead and get that started. All right, so we're going to go to deploy an OVF or OVA file. We're going to find our OVA. Which is right there. Drag that in there. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say UCM Pub 12.5. Okay. We're going to leave it on the default of 7,500 user. You can put more, or you can set it up for more or less. The 150 user is only the BE6K, 1,000 user only the C200. So you could go with the smaller 2,500. I'm just going to stick with the default just to make it easy. And again, we do not want to power that on automatically quite yet because we don't have the ISO set up as the DVD to boot from. So we want to uncheck that. And there's our summary of what we're doing. Go ahead and click finish. And it's done. So now we go to that virtual machine. We're going to go ahead and edit the settings. We're going to go to the DVD, change that to data store ISO, and we're going to find our bootable 12.5 image and save. Okay, once that's done, we should be able to go ahead and power up, and it should start booting as it is right now. All right, we're going to let that boot up for a second. Okay, comes up, tells us that we've got a disk found. Okay, we're either going to go ahead and test the media, or we can skip this. Testing the media is a good idea just to make sure that the checksum is okay, that it all works. I've already used this particular image before, so I know that it is good, so I'm going to go ahead and skip it. Don't want to make this video too long to make you go through too much. Okay. Now in the 12.5 version, previous versions had Call Manager and Unity together in the installation file. Well, with 12.5, they've changed that. So now there are separate images for Call Manager and for Unity. This one is only for Call Manager, so that's the only option that it gives us. We're going to go ahead and take that, okay? It sees what version is on the DVD. I'm going to go ahead and proceed. And now it asks if we want to proceed with the wizard. Yes, proceed. Okay. Do we want to apply an upgrade patch? Okay. In this case, no, we're not going to. You can, if you're running through a disaster recovery type thing, the only bootable image that you have is an earlier version and you've already done an upgrade, that may be something that you want to look at. Okay. But in this case, no, we don't need to do that. Okay. Continue with the basic install. Okay, now we need to pick our time zone. Again, we're going to need to use a NTP in this, or it will not continue. That will be a little bit later in this configuration. Okay, next speed and duplex, don't need to change that, so we're going to go ahead and continue. Don't need to change the MTU size. And we do not want this to be a DHCP to get its IP address from DHCP. So we're going to head and click no. Okay, here's our host name. Okay. Okay, I'm going to use what I used before with creating the virtual machine. Okay. Too many fives there. And our gateway. All right. So the DNS, let's talk about DNS for a little bit. I did a previous video with the installation of 12. Or 11.5, and it is pretty much the same. If you're going to do a DNS server, which you probably should, you need to make sure that the computer is set up in the DNS for your call manager. So it has to have your host name and IP address. You also need to make sure that the reverse lookup zone is created and has the reverse lookup for this machine, for the IP address and going to the host name. If you don't, when this installation gets to the point of enabling the network, it's going to reach out to that DNS and try to find it and make sure that it's working. If it's not, if there's no reverse lookup, then it's going to fail. And so you will need to put on your troubleshooting hat and figure out, okay, well, why is it failing? I'm helping you right now to say, make sure your DNS is correct. Otherwise, it will fail. In this case, lab environment, I don't have a DNS server, so I'm just going to go ahead and not put in a DNS so that it's going to bypass that part. All right, here is our platform admin user, okay? Okay, this is not the GUI admin, but this is the platform, something that you would use for the OS administration on the GUI or to log into the CLI or disaster recovery to for that. And keep going. Okay, here's our certificate information. Okay, and just normally you would put your organization and unit. You know, my location, it happens to be Utah. Oh, Salt Lake City, Utah. And we should be good. This is for the self-signed certificate. Later on, you may want to do an actual signed certificate from a certificate authority such as GoDaddy or DigiCert or something like that. And it will overwrite this, so you won't need it at that point. Okay, is this the first node in the cluster? Yes, it is. It's the publisher. Okay, and here's our NTP. Okay, as I stated before, NTP has to be put in. It will not allow you to leave this blank. And again, when the network is enabled, it will reach out and try to make sure that the NTP is active and accessible. So you need to make sure that you have an NTP. I currently don't have an internal NTP, so I'm just going to put in an external NTP address that I know, and that will work. Here's our security password. Now the security password is used for encryption of your disaster recovery files. It's also used to communicate in between nodes of the cluster. So this password has to be the same between nodes. And again, it's very important to know if you are doing a restoring from a backup, you will need to know what that security password was prior to doing that. And if it is different, that restore will fail. All right, the SMTP is if you want to be able to send emails from this email of diagnostic information of the install in case something goes wrong, which can be a good thing. In this case, again, lab environment, I've done this many times before, so I'm not going to use the SMTP server. Okay, the smart call home is something that can be used uh, to send information to Cisco TAC in case you run into problems and you want tax information or help with your installation and things like that. In this case, I'm not going to be using it. You will also need to do the SMTP if you're going to be doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and disable all of that. Okay, the application username. The application username is for the GUI administration. Okay, so everything that you're doing for your configuration. Okay, this can be the same as what you configured for the platform. It can be different if you want it to be different for security reasons. Maybe you want some people to administer using the administrator name for the GUI, but you don't want them to be able to get into the operating system or be able to CLI SSH into the console. So In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and make it the same. And now the platform configuration is complete. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to go ahead and press OK while I discuss this. What's going to happen now is that it's going to go ahead and start installing the files that it needs. Okay, so it goes through, it installs. You'll probably see a reboot or two here and there in the installation. And then at one point, it's going to bring up the network. Okay, it's going to set the IP address, gateway, uh, subnet mask, and all that kind of stuff. And it's then going to reach out to the network and make sure that it works. Okay, it's also going to check the NTP. Again, as I discussed before, if you are setting the DNS, that's where it's going to reach out to the DNS server and verify that everything is good there, okay? And if everything is good, then we'll continue. If not, then it will stop right there. It will give you a chance to go back in the configuration and change something that maybe you got wrong and then move forward again. So a little bit different in this configuration is that a lot of this part of the configuration looks a little bit different than the installation on the 4.11.5. Okay, it's just text-based. It doesn't have the blue background where it's giving you the percentage of what it's doing. It will get to that point and do that, but at this point, it's just going through installing so much of the scripts that it needs for the installation. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this to the end of the configuration or the end of the installation, where we will then just be able to log in and everything will be good. So see you in a little bit. All right, the install is complete. You can see Cisco Unified Communications Manager 12.5. This is the console that we could log into. But let's go ahead and see if our GUI will now come up. 130 was the address that we put in, and there we go. Notice that there is no Prime License Manager anymore with 12.5, starting with 12.0. Licensing has been moved to Cisco Smart Licensing. And so if you have that, you will need to convert your previous cool licenses to your smart licensing to be able to get the licenses set up correctly. All right, let's just go ahead and make sure that we can log in. And it looks like it's working pretty well. All right, always we have a few warnings that are here. One of them being that we are not registered with a smart software manager. All right, so that will need to be done, and I'll show you that in just a second. The other one is no backup device, so we'll need to configure the DRS for that to go away. And then this is emergency notifications paging. I usually just go ahead, click on there, turn that off, and that will take care of that. So unless you wanted to configure that. So let's talk about the licensing. So now we go to licensing and license management. And in here, we've got, it is now unregistered. Obviously, I don't have any phones in here. This is a brand new install, okay? But if we to go and register, what we would need is in our smart software account on software.cisco.com, we would have to have our licenses in there. So if you had cool licenses, those need to be converted. If you have flex licenses, those should be in there. And then what you would do is on the Smart Software Manager, you would be able to create a token. And then once that token is created, you would copy that, you would go to register, you would paste that token in, and then click register. What that will do is it will go out to the Cisco Smart Software Manager and register your call manager publisher in there. It will then communicate and let the Smart Software Manager know what devices you have, and it will combine that and match that with the licenses that you have in there. So that's pretty much it. That's the install for version 12.5. Going forward, I'm going to do a video on upgrading 11.5 to 12.5. Once version 14 comes out, I will do a video on installing 14, upgrading version 12.5 to 14, and all that fun stuff. So if you like my videos, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hopefully we can do a lot more. Thank you very much.